The Hornets backcourt is lighting it up, and is it still Teddy's team in 2021? This is the Crown Score Podcast. Welcome into the Crown Score Podcast. It's Tuesday, March 30th. John Ellis is back with us this week. John, welcome back.
Hey, how we doing? Good to see you guys again. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, the Hornets, they were quiet at the trade deadline. They did get Brad Wanamaker as a point guard to perhaps maybe fill in the shoes of LaMelo Ball, as he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. But since LaMelo went down, they're 3-1. The backcourt is buzzing. I mean, they almost pulled out that late comeback Sunday against the Suns. Devonte Graham was playing like a man possessed. Him and Terry Rozier have been so good since LaMelo went down. Reggie, just speak on it for a little bit.
Well, first of all, I got to poke fun at you because there was pun intended in the buzzing backcourt comment. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, we call each other out here on Crown Score, everybody, just so you know. But no, I look, when you look at this basketball team, right, it was quote unquote quiet at the deadline. And what I think is interesting about that, I thought they might go after some different guys in the buyout market, but I think what we saw with this particular situation in the buyout market in particular, as it relates to whether you're talking about a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge or Andre Drummond, who is a guy that, I kind of thought might be a smart play for them in the buyout market as well, a guy that you don't really have to call plays for, just let him go get offensive rebounds and get his 15 and 10 that way. Or also a guy like Blake Griffin, right, pie in the sky. What I thought was interesting on that is those guys generally, they try to go to teams that are considered contenders. And if you look at what this Hornets team is, it's a young basketball team. They're starting to figure it out. I will say that. But I don't know that they're in a position right now to make that run to the conference finals or deeper. And so I think that was part of the reason why they probably weren't able to attract some guys in that buyout market. Now, with that being said, I did read there were some reports out there that a guy like Andre Drummond kind of did look in Charlotte's direction or was willing to maybe hear from the organization, but they were sort of further down the line than anybody else. And I understand that it's a young team. They're trying to figure it out. And at the same time, outside of the buyout market, to be honest, I wouldn't have really wanted them to really do too much to tinker with this team because the team had been playing so well. One of the things that I will say is very interesting and something that maybe a young guy like LaMelo Ball can learn from is defensively, from an efficiency standpoint, this team has been better with him out. Now, that doesn't mean this is a better basketball team without LaMelo Ball. What it means is a message to LaMelo Ball: don't be the reason that the level of defense goes down because you're back on the floor. So I think it's going to give him a little bit of a chance to really see and understand that he's going to have to become an improved defensive player as he grows in his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fun team to watch, no doubt. I mean, I tweeted out the other day, the NFL Panthers account that I do here, but to see Charlotte in the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference is pretty cool. I mean, because I go back to the Tyvola days, the Del Curry, Larry Johnson days, and obviously I haven't followed the Hornets closely over the years since then, but it's good to see them back in the mix. But yeah, as far as Ball goes, I mean, I think you're right, Reggie. It's a good chance for him to step back. I mean, you never want to see a guy get hurt, but it's a good opportunity to sit back and learn a little bit, to get a sense of the game itself, the NBA game. I do think that game against the Suns was remarkable. The heart they showed in that game was remarkable, and that's what you look for with a team right now, like Charlotte. I mean, they're not really primed to make a championship run, but they're in the mix. They're in the middle of that conference race. And you've talked about program building for NFL, for college, for NBA, any type of program. It's those building blocks where you build confidence. And this is one of those confidence building seasons. You never know in the playoffs. The NBA playoffs is a little more predictable than the NFL playoffs. Usually the top of the heap usually gets to the finals, but you never know. They're going to be in the mix. They're fourth right now, I believe. And we'll see. Number five right now.
It depends on who plays. It depends on who plays tonight.
Yeah.
New place tonight, yeah. Right. It's a fun team to watch, high energy, and it's good to see some fans back in the hive again. That's fun.
Yeah, and Reggie, to your point, saying that maybe the Hornets weren't as attractive as a Brooklyn or the Lakers, but for like a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge or Andre Drummond, Like, I understand that they're trying to go chase a ring this year, and more power to them. But with the additions of Gordon Hayward last year and the immediate emergence of LaMelo Ball, Charlotte's starting to look like a little bit more of an attractive destination on the free agent market.
Well, yeah, what ends up happening, right, is guys like Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, they generally, and even a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge at this point in his career, once they become those buyout market guys, they kind of stay there. So everywhere they go over the next however many more years they play, they're generally going to be one-year contract guys. If they're on a bad team close to the deadline, they'll get bought out. They'll go somewhere else, chase. That's kind of what they are deciding to become in their careers. And I think if you look at an organization like Charlotte right now, they're not at the point to where they need those pieces. They know they have Gordon Hayward, right? One of their big three, if that's what it's going to become. They feel like LaMelo Ball obviously is a second piece of that. The third piece, now you can argue this 8,000 ways to Sunday, is in the future. Is it going to be Devonte Graham? Is it going to be Terry Rozier? Is it going to be someone else? We can argue that till we're all blue in the face because we don't know. But what we do know is when they get that person figured out, and this team all of a sudden is a top 3 team in the conference throughout the year, and the expectations are that high, then those buyout market guys will start to look at Charlotte a different way because they see them at the top of the conference and they feel like maybe at that point, Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond or whoever is going, maybe I'm the guy that can take them over the top.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they're not in the class of Brooklyn or Philadelphia or Milwaukee right now.
No.
But you know, if they lock in at a 4 or a 5 seed, I like their chances against a team like the Knicks, like the Celtics, or like the Hawks in a 7-game series.
I tell you, I think it would be great if the Panthers or the Hornets check.
We'll get to them next.
Panthers. If the Hornets end up, let's say, a 5 seed, and they're playing the Knicks, I think that'd be great for them in the playoffs.
It'd be tough for me personally.
I know, Kevin, you wouldn't love that, but the reason why I say that is
tough for me personally.
Let's just say LaMelo does get back in time for the playoffs, and that is their first round matchup. What better place for fans and for people around the NBA to understand what the Hornets are building as an organization with Michael Jordan as the owner and the leader of this organization than to have the opportunity to play at Madison Square Garden, potentially 3 or 4 out of 7 games. Obviously, it'll be on national television as well. I think that would actually, regardless of the outcome, and obviously you want to see the Hornets win that series. If you're a Hornets fan, you want to see the Knicks win it. If you're a Knicks fan, I'm helping you out there, Kev.
Well, MJ in the Garden scares the hell out of me, man.
Well, that's the other piece of it, right? MJ in the Garden.
Different aspects, still scary.
Correct. But Always. At the end of the day, that is a place to where this franchise and the players on this team can say to potential big name free agents, hey, we're good. We're legit. We're on our way up. We need one more guy to come here and be a part of this thing. And we can make maybe try to make a series run. That's a place where you can do it on Madison Square Garden and during the playoffs.
That's one of those stepping stones we talked about earlier. I mean, again, you might not be primed to make a run deep in the playoffs, but just that face time on that stage and the publicity that brings, the good publicity, you get a chance as an organization to showcase yourself on a stage that is one of the biggest in the world, and go for it. It's going to help your stock as long as you play respectable basketball. And I think they can. They're a good team. They're talented.
And do it now while LeVar Ball is still muted.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I will correct you. It's not one of the biggest stages in the world in sports. It is the biggest.
Here we go.
Madison Square Garden is
the
Garden is my favorite place on earth.
When the Rangers are playing.
Yeah, when the Knicks are playing, they're sold out. It doesn't matter how bad they are. It doesn't matter how many people Dolan kicks out.
That's true. That's true.
It doesn't matter how many people Dolan kicks out. That place is still full.
They traded 9 guys for Carmelo Anthony, and they still sold out every night.
That was the last time they were good.
Wilson,
all right,
Chandler, all those guys.
Hornets are back tonight on the road against Washington. 1 of 6 straight on the road. So good luck to them. Let's transition to the Panthers. Big wrench was kind of thrown into the draft plans for across the board, I guess you could say, by the 49ers this past week. When they traded up with Miami to the third slot, they traded 2 more firsts and then a third to Miami, who went back to 12, who flipped that pick and moved up to 6th with Philadelphia. Big ramifications for the Panthers because if things go as predicted at Trevor Lawrence at 1 and Zach Wilson at 2 to the Jets, San Francisco didn't make that trade to move up to 3 to draft a left tackle.
No.
You make a trade like that to draft a quarterback. So, you think so? I thought
here's what I'll say. I'll put it to you this way. I won't rule it out. But think about this now, and I know I'm getting ready to kind of contradict myself in a way, but right now, you've got to look at several different teams and look at where things may fall. And one of the teams they have to watch, in my opinion, is Cincinnati at 4. Cincinnati, they're coming off a year where
Cincinnati's at 5.
That's right.
Atlanta's
at 5.
Atlanta's 4.
Atlanta's at 4.
Yeah.
And those are two teams. Well, those are two teams that don't need a quarterback. So you didn't need to get in front of those two teams. Those are two teams that, in my opinion, are looking at linemen to protect their quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, who I was getting ready to mention at 4, got beat up last year. Cincinnati's last 4 first-round picks, only 2 of them were starters last year. We know John Ross got sent packing. Obviously, the other one was the tackle Williams, and then a guy like Joe Burrow, who we already mentioned. So I think they're going to go offensive line or they're going to go weapon for Joe Burrow, in my personal opinion. I think Atlanta, I
think Atlanta could draft a quarterback.
They could. It doesn't make as bad as they are. They might as well start building around who's going to be the quarterback down the line. To me, it doesn't make sense to trade up, or they didn't trade up, but to be jockeying for a quarterback when you know that you've got Matt Ryan for at least another year, but you're going to have to fix more than just quarterback. So I wouldn't be surprised if that trade up does not turn into a quarterback pick at 3.
Well, who is going to be the quarterback for the Panthers? Because that kind of hampers them a little bit at 8. Say 3 quarterbacks are gone. Say 4 quarterbacks are gone. What do you do there at 8, John? I mean, do you sit tight and make your pick? Do you trade back? I mean, is it Teddy time again in Carolina?
Joe Person coined the hashtag "Get Ready for Teddy."
I should credit Joe Person. I'm sorry, Joe.
Billy and I have been talking about this, Billy Marshall, on our podcast since January, that it's a very real possibility, just by virtue of the contract design, that Bridgewater was always going to be the starter moving forward in 2021. Reggie, now you and I talked a little bit this weekend about giving him more opportunities to maybe throw the ball downfield. It's not all on Teddy. He can make those vertical throws. It's not all bad. We highlight some of the bad things that have happened down the stretch. They've got to get better, but he's locked in as a $20 million cap hit for this season. So if you can't find who you want at 8, don't force it. You're going to have a ton of good players, maybe an offensive tackle, maybe one of these top corners in the draft. If you do want to get a quarterback, I think they're going to have to trade up with Natty. I really do. I don't know if any of these quarterbacks are going to fall to number 8. Now, I'm taking Mac Jones out of the equation. I don't see Mac as a top 4 guy. Now, a lot of people do. The 49ers reportedly do. That's a lot of smokescreen. Right. I don't know if I buy that. Shanahan's dad did this with Cutler. He didn't go to his pro days and kind of let the smokescreen play out. Then he drafted him. So it's hard to know where Mac's going to go. I would prefer Lance or Fields at this point. Wilson, I like a lot too. I just think he's going to go too early. Could the Jets and Darnold work out a trade with Carolina? That's fascinating too. Darnold has had nothing to work with, and his film is aggressive at times.
It's been very inconsistent there in New York. Yeah,
I would also look at it from this standpoint too, guys, because I don't think this is out of the realm to think about this possibility. They may do the same thing that the team that we just finished talking about, the Charlotte Hornets did. Right here in the same city. Stand pat where they are. Look, this is the discussion. This is a 5 quarterback draft with the
allegedly.
Ceiling, right? Yeah. Which it stops, and then number 6, in my opinion, at least, is Kyle Trask. But this draft, right? You just say we're going to take the one that falls to us, because if we're going to be wrong, we're not going to leverage a bunch of picks in the future and miss. So, and look, at the end of the day, that turned out really good for the Hornets. It was a 3-player NBA draft by many people's standards. A lot of people felt like LaMelo had the best ceiling of all of them. He falls to the Hornets at 3. They look like geniuses. Goes back to, and Kevin, you and I have had the Sam Presti conversation for a million years. They call Sam Presti a genius for drafting Kevin Durant. No, you're not a genius. It was a 2-player draft. Greg Oden and Kevin Durant. Durant came second, and you just didn't screw it up by not picking him. So I think if you're the Panthers, that has to be a little bit of the thought process because, guys, I don't know about – I haven't talked to every scout in the NFL. I haven't talked to all the scouts with the Panthers, but I can tell you this. There's something to not love about every single one of these quarterbacks that are in this draft, particularly the guys at the top, that makes me nervous about picking any of them in the top 10.
I've talked to a source that was at Wilson's pro day, and he's a league source. He's been doing this for a long time, and he loves the arm. He thinks the throws are incredible, but he's concerned about his frame. It's the same thing we hear about Trevor Lawrence, that will the frame hold up? I think Lawrence is clearly the number one quarterback in this draft, but we get back to what Dave Tepper had talked about from day one before we got into this vortex of, we got to get a quarterback now because Stafford's available and Deshaun Watson, what a mess that is. But it was initially, Teddy's going to be our guy. Bring it along slowly, 2 years, maybe 3 years. We'll see. And then we try to get Matt Stafford. And then Watson's in play. And now we're kind of back to square one, I think, that, maybe it's time to pump the brakes. Let Teddy ride this thing out with better weapons, better protection. Be patient. Don't sell the farm. Don't trade Brian Burns, DJ Moore.
No.
Keep that core together. Keep your draft picks and be sensible. The Watson thing was the big one to me. I really got a sense that he was going to be in line to be a Panther. I'll just be honest with you. I thought it was going to happen. And what's going on now, it's very unfortunate, but they can't make that move right now. Nobody can.
No, you can't. You can't do that right now.
That situation is currently untouchable considering the potential. The potential. To figure that out. So I put out a poll on Twitter the other day. I actually got a couple of votes. I was pretty surprised. But, Watson aside, you can't touch him right now. So my question was, going forward in 2021, who would you want to be quarterback of the Panthers? It was Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo, who apparently is not going to get moved now by San Francisco, or somebody else. And I got 30 votes, and 60% said somebody else. Bridgewater was dead last. But I think that if they do make a move, the Jets could be a team that they could potentially roll with, unless you wager a ton of picks and move up to 2, which I would be a little dicey about, or you go get Darnold. But is Darnold even worth it right now?
The problem with Darnold is you're going to have this year. Matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong.
He's got this year and a 5th-year option coming.
Yeah, but they'd have to make the decision on that 5th-year option before this season starts. So again, you're right back at that $20+ million cap number that I think is just not a feasible situation if you're this organization. So to me, I think the smart move right now is if you're going to draft somebody, you draft them. They probably sit behind Teddy for a year, and then you move on from Teddy because you can walk away from Teddy with no cap space, or you draft somebody and then you trade Teddy after the draft if you can find a taker, because you have to be careful in putting too much into that one position with the way the cap is manipulated, particularly this year coming off of COVID. The other thing I would say is, look, you guys know, you've seen everything I tweet, I talk about it. For me, quarterbacks, I need 30 games at the college level. Okay. At least 30 games. To me, I'd prefer you start 30, but I need to see at least 30 games to know what you are. Zach Wilson, right at 30 games. You look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence, we know what he's done, but if you really do the math, he's at 36, 37 games because he took over midway through his freshman year. And then you look at some of those other guys, Justin Fields, he's played in less than 30 games total. That makes me a little bit nervous. Mac Jones, low number of games started. I think he only obviously started this past season. It's not like that guy has 2 years under his belt as a starter either. So a lot of these names, they make me really, really nervous because they haven't had the snaps. And I know a lot of people, don't love to hear that, but I take it all the way back to what Pete Carroll said when Mark Sanchez came out early. He said, look, he doesn't have the amount of snaps. With the amount of snaps he has, the percentages say he won't turn into the great long-term solution at quarterback that many hope. And what did Mark Sanchez become? Not quite that great long-term solution for that same New York Jets franchise. So I still kind of lean on that and agree with Pete Carroll. And this class of quarterbacks scares me to that point.
Well, Scott Fitter has talked about this too, finding value in later rounds. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they traded back, guys. I wouldn't.
And
wouldn't be
by the way,
surprised if they took that pick and packaged it back to New England or another team in the middle of the first round, get another pick or two, and keep building through the draft. That's the smart way to do this. I know everybody wanted Watson and Stafford, but maybe they got to just ground themselves again, take a deep breath, and just build this the right way, slowly and effectively through the draft. Look how it's worked out for Miami. Beautiful.
Yeah. Where did Fitterer find Russell Wilson? Like the third round?
Second or third round? Third round?
Yeah. I think it
worked out pretty well.
Round.
That worked out pretty well.
Well, and I'm glad you make that point, because I would also say this: if I'm Carolina, if all of a sudden I get to the middle part of the second round and Kyle Trask is still on the board, I make that pick. And now I know a lot of people are like, Kyle Trask, he was awful in the bowl game. Here's what I can tell you about that bowl game. I don't know, because I didn't talk to Dan Mullen, and he'll never admit this anyway, but I know how bowl games work. I can almost guarantee you that the entire time of bowl practice, Kyle Trask was getting reps with the twos because they weren't worried about him. Dan Mullen was preparing for 2021 with a new quarterback, and Kyle Trask didn't get many reps with that first group down there getting ready for the bowl game, and that's why he looked like hot trash in that bowl game. But I think Kyle Trask is a better player than we saw in that bowl game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he turns into a pretty good NFL quarterback if someone picks him in the second or third round.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out in about 4 weeks. The draft is, I believe, 4 weeks from this Thursday.
Yeah, a month
so
from today.
A lot's going to unfold in the next 4 weeks and see where the Panthers are going to be, and maybe who they're going to pick, and maybe they trade down. Who knows? There's a lot that we'll find out in the coming weeks.
I don't think this trading frenzy is over, though, guys. I think there's a lot more movement coming. I think there's going to be some more jockeying for position. And I think someone's going to make a big jump and do something wild before this thing is all said and done.
I agree.
Yeah, it's possible. And maybe there's something, maybe by next week. We don't know. But, speaking of next week.
As the world turns,
yes.
You never know what's going to happen next.
Speaking of next week, we'll have Abby Labar next week, Fox Sports Carolinas.
Shout out to Abby.
It'll be Bally Sports with that whole change. I believe that's coming in the next couple of days. But we'll talk some Carolina Hurricanes hockey next week, and of course some Panthers and Hornets as always.
Let's get it.
All right,
nice.
boys.
Do it.
All right, we'll see y'all next week.